It went away. Why did it go away? I apologize. I lost my screen share.
Zoom works in mysterious ways sometimes.
Hi, Kim. We're getting close.
Jillian, I was running through my intro earlier, and I think with my little 90-second video, I think I get to maybe 6.5 minutes. Is that a deal breaker?
I don't know, Erika, I might have to cut you off. No, of course.
I'll try to keep it concise, and then hopefully if I can be quick with my, getting my video going and everything, it should be we're pretty close to the time, but
Plenty of time, so. Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
This is when I wish we had music to play. I'm not technologically savvy enough to know how to do that.
You know.
Hi, Josh, how are you? Oh, you're muted.
I'm doing good. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hey, everyone.
Hi there.
So Josh, you should be able, do you have slides that you want to share for your brief introduction, or are you just going to say really nice things?
I'm just gonna say a few things. I can stay on this screen is fine. I don't have any slides or anything to share.
Okay. Jillian, does it show to you that we are recording? I pushed the button a couple minutes ago, but.
We're ready, and I think it's noon, so whenever you want to take it away.
Okay. We have, yes, we have people here as well. So thank you to everyone who's here, to our esteemed panel members, and Joshua Prankin, our sponsor from Polsinelli today, who was generous enough, Polsinelli Law Firm, to sponsor the Leading Innovation and Sustainability, as well as contribute substantially to the virtual technology platform that we are running the poster session on. So thank you very much. I'm Sarah Hibship, the Director of Outreach and Communications at CSU Ventures and CSURF. And I just wanted to say thank you and take a moment to introduce Joshua. He's going to talk a little bit about Polsinelli and their commitment to innovation at CSU. And so I will turn it over to him. I think everybody can see his picture on the screen. And then once Josh, you are done, if you will turn it over to Jillian, that would be wonderful. So.
Okay, sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Prankin. I'm a shareholder at Polsinelli in the Denver office. I'm a patent attorney, and the majority of what I do, the majority of my practice, is in the fields of medical and veterinary technology. And I also do a bit of work in the agricultural space as well. A little bit about Polsinelli. We are a national law firm with over 800 attorneys and 22 offices around the country. We are really a full service law firm, handling everything from corporate to intellectual property and everything in between. As it relates to sustainability, we do a lot of work in renewable energy, especially with solar and wind, and all the related issues with that, with land use, zoning, finance, and regulatory matters. And I work with a few sustainable agricultural companies that are developing new and innovative technologies in lighting and sensing for reducing water use and energy consumption. At Polsinelli, we've been working with CSU for over a decade. In our work with CSU, we've drafted countless patent applications, met with lots of inventors, advised on licensing issues, and provided opinions on new technologies. It's really been a great relationship and one that we really value very much. One of my colleagues, Wade Johnson, was actually interviewed in one of the demo day videos, which I saw, and he said something to the effect of CSU is a real model for how tech transfer offices should run. And I agree with those comments. I think CSU is really provides a supportive community and environment for innovation to thrive. This is kind of evident by programs such as Demo Day, CSURF, and CSU Ventures, which do not just passively kind of receive new technology ideas in the door from professors and students. Instead, it's very proactive, kind of building an ecosystem of innovation that encourages and provides support to entrepreneurs and inventors. In doing that, they help provide business plan guidance, provide access to mentors and advisors, and help get access to capital, which is just, I think, kind of unique, and it stands tall amongst tech transfer offices. So not only is CSU kind of as a whole kind of a leader in sustainability, as evident by the numerous accolades like the STARS Platinum Rating, Princeton Reviews, Green Honor Roll, but there's definitely a focus on sustainable business practices and ideas, as evident by kind of the various submissions I've seen at Demo Day that really focus on sustainability, which is all really exciting. And that's it. And with that, I just want to turn it over to the panel there. And thanks for giving me a minute to introduce myself and to talk about our relationship with CSU.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, we appreciate your support. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jillian Lang. I'm a Director of Licensing and Business Development at CSURF on the Ventures team. I will be your moderator today for this wonderful panel. We're delighted to have this great group of folks here for a conversation. So before I introduce myself, I just want to remind everyone, please, this is meant to be interactive. Enter your questions into the Q&A and I'll do my best to keep an eye on them and feed them to the panel. So I hold our food and agriculture portfolio, and much of that is centered around sustainability. And but I've also been at CSU, or was at CSU for a very long time. I did both of my graduate degrees at CSU in the College of Agricultural Sciences and Plant Pathology and Cell and Molecular Biology. And so I'm a RAM through and through. And sustainability has been it's been a part of my life for a long time, both professionally and personally. I'm really active in our Fort Collins Sustainable Neighborhoods program. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation today. So I think I'm going to go ahead and kick off the panel. We decided that everyone's going to introduce themselves and then speak to how their individual programs and their work are leading innovation and sustainability. So without further ado, Erika, I think you're going to kick us off.
Great, thank you so much, Jillian. All right, hi everyone. My name is Erika Benti. I work for CSU Parking and Transportation Services, and I'm so honored to be here with the rest of this panel. So I get to do a lot of cool stuff related to sustainability just day to day in my job, working with students on their transportation options, promoting sustainable transportation. But I'm here particularly on this panel today to talk about a project called CSU Moves that I've worked on over the past few years with an interdisciplinary group here at CSU. So CSU Moves is an online training for incoming students that talks about the sustainable transportation options available to them at CSU and throughout our region. And then also talks about how to get around safely, no matter what mode you choose. And we decided that this virtual training platform would be important, you know, even prior to this past year where we've all gotten so familiar with virtual platforms. Because my team within my department, you know, we do have a lot of touch points through events with incoming students during orientation, RAM welcome, you know, in the beginning of the year, talking to students about transportation, but we just knew that we weren't able to hit all of those almost 6,000 incoming students that we get each year at CSU. And what we really wanted to do with this training was to set a baseline for all students so that as they're coming into CSU, they understand what options are available to them, how to use them, and then how to do it safely. We know a lot of our students might be coming from places that don't have a robust transit system, so maybe they don't have experience using the bus, or their only experience riding a bike might be riding in their driveway as a kid. And so that is really different than if you come here and want to use a bike for transportation in the road with other modes of travel. So that was really our objective here. And then of course, to make this training fun, to make transportation fun, because it really can be fun. So we wanted to infuse this training with the fun of transportation as well. So this interdisciplinary team that I got to work on, we developed a curriculum. And then in 2017, we won an Innovate Fort Collins grant through the city to develop our training. And then we got to work with the amazing team at CSU Creative Services to really envision what this training would look like. And they came up with this really fun idea of having these animated videos that introduce the main topics within our training. So the training is made up of 6 short animated videos that introduce these main ideas within the training. It's plugged into CSU's online learning platform called Canvas. And then following the videos are infographics, photos and other types of media to kind of help back up the points that we're making in the training. So I would like to take a minute to show you one of those videos. It'll just take about 90 seconds. So this is a video from the section of the training that is called Be Seen, Be Heard. So give me just a second to share my screen and we'll show you that 90-second video. think it's just loading. We'll give it 1 second.
In the wild, animals adapt to their surroundings. By being seen and heard, they increase their chances of survival. While some animals are masters of camouflage, birds of paradise are the kings of being seen. Their colorful plumage makes them impossible to ignore. Even in the cover of night, some animals make themselves known. The firefly lights the dark skies, and without a doubt, they are present. Some animals use their sight to make themselves known. By watching carefully. The tarsier uses his vision to communicate with others. When animals cannot be visually noticed, they find ways to get their point across. Although it cannot be seen, the goat's call is unmistakable to those around it. Through unique adaptations, the animals ensure their survival. It's a jungle out there, and only the fit will thrive.
All right. So as you can see, the theme of these videos is the college campus as a nature documentary. And it was such a fun experience to get with, or to work with CSU Creative Services on kind of coming up on this, new take on how to talk about transportation. So just the last thing I wanted to say is that, we intentionally made these initial videos to be not branded CSU. And so we've gotten to work with CSU Ventures now to actually begin licensing these to other universities who have the same, challenges that we have to get this information out to their students. So next fall, UC Berkeley and Virginia Tech will be launching their own version of CSU Moves for their students. And we're working with a couple of other universities to get that licensing process going as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jillian.
That was great. Thank you, Erika. And I have to say, I was a participant in several of the programming and community bike rides that Erika and her team would put on, and highly recommend it. So when everyone's back to normal on campus and those are starting again, it was really educational and fun, and especially if you're in the CSU community. So, okay, up next, Bryan, I'm gonna kick it to you.
Hi, I'm Bryan Willson. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering, but my day job right now is as director of the CSU Energy Institute. And the Energy Institute comprises over 200 faculty from across campus working in all aspects of energy. And our focus is really on energy solutions. How do we develop solutions to solve problems? How do we implement those at scale? And that implementation piece means that we need to engage the wider community at the university to understand how to build sustainable businesses, what the regulatory environment means, so that those 200 faculty members, many are certainly focused in engineering and the sciences, but we also have faculty members, such as former Colorado Governor Bill Ritter, that has his Energy Policy Center as part of the Institute. We have faculty members in psychology, sociology, anthropology, working in behavioral aspects of energy. There's an energy humanities program, but it's really, everything's sort of focused on how do we solve problems of energy access and reduce environmental consequences of energy production and use. We've recently expanded our focus to include climate solutions, and pretty much anything that we do in energy has a climate impact, but there are certainly a number of climate solutions that aren't energy related. So an example of that is soil carbon. CSU is one of the great land grant institutions. We have a very strong scientific team working on soil carbon and looking at the tremendous amount of carbon dioxide that can be stored in the soils, providing a sink for atmospheric CO2, but also improving productivity and soil health in the process. So we have recently with campus leaders such as Keith Postian and Francesca Catrofu, we've launched the Soil Carbon Solutions Center, looking at how we can take the science and scale that up into solutions. My own journey, I've had the opportunity to develop a number of technologies and to use those to launch 4 different companies, mostly on the again in the aspect focusing on energy access and on reducing environmental impact. Just a few of those items, here at the we also have a physical facility with our Powerhouse Energy Campus, which is the building you see in my backdrop. It's just north of Old Town, where College Avenue crosses the Poudre River. The work that happens here is focusing on large-scale energy systems. So we work on large industrial engines. The solutions we've developed there have the same impact on air quality as removing about 150 million automobiles from the highway. We've got one of the large grid labs that was originally funded by the government of Denmark to figure out how to use wind energy more effectively in Denmark. We've done a lot of work on energy access in the developing world, working on important things such as indoor air quality and pollution from smoky cook stoves. And the cook stoves that have been developed here and commercialized through a company we launched here called EnviroFit International are being sold throughout Asia, Africa, Latin America. And to me, when we talk about starting companies, entrepreneurship, it's really the tool we use to take the, start with the science, turn that science into specific solutions. And then entrepreneurship is really the tool we use to get those solutions implemented at scale. Thanks, I'll turn it back over, Jillian.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan, that's great. Okay, so up next we have Sybil.
Hi, I'm Sybil Sharvelle, and I'm a professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at Colorado State University. I'm also a member of One Water Solutions Institute. So Bryan just explained how the Energy Institute is kind of focused on solving all energy issues and sustainability toward energy solutions. And One Water Solutions Institute is very much focused on water solutions and really bringing sustainability into how we manage our water resources. We also a very outward facing institute that provides technology, research, and regulatory guidance with respect to water systems. And has therefore a lot of collaboration with utilities, health departments, as well as consulting firms in the water industry. My particular area of focus and where I really contribute to the One Water Solutions Institute, or OWSI, is in what I would broadly describe as resource recovery, and primarily focused on recovering resources from waste materials. And there are lots of different kind of facets of that I work on in my research. So one example is looking at wastes that have high organic content, like municipal organic waste, like food waste or yard waste, or even municipal wastewater, and converting that organic material into either methane biogas or recovering volatile fatty acids from that material that can be used to make higher value fuel products or plastic materials. So that's kind of one example of resource recovery that I work in. Another example is recovering nitrogen and phosphorus, for example, from wastewater. So our wastewater, municipal wastewater and domestic wastewater, contains a lot of nutrients from our human waste material, and we spend a lot of energy and money to remove nitrogen and phosphorus from wastewater so that they don't pollute our natural water systems where the wastewater is discharged after treatment. And so we work on a lot of things to try to recover that nitrogen and phosphorus from the wastewater prior to discharge, rather than just trying to remove it. A large part of the work that I do is also related to water recycling, and that can vary across a lot of different scales. The most common scale we think about is taking municipal wastewater and treating that to a quality that may be sufficient for use for irrigation or maybe flushing toilets. And that's done at a large city scale. But I've been thinking a lot more about decentralized solutions and using other water sources. So we've worked on what we call really fit for purpose water. And what I describe as fit for purpose water is water that's treated appropriate for the end use in mind. So a lot of times what we have traditionally done is treat all water to potable quality, which of course expends a lot of energy. So there's a lot of water energy connections, and all of everyone who's talked so far has, I think, highlighted some of those energy and water connections. So anyway, when we do these things at really large scale, sometimes we're expending a lot of energy to treat the water to a quality that's higher than what we need for the intended end use. And so when we can use decentralized systems and think about water sources like stormwater, for example, that don't require, so stormwater's runoff after a precipitation event may not require as much treatment as domestic wastewater. Or we can separate gray water, which is shower water and laundry water, and treat that separately. And that can be done at, say, a hotel or a multi-residential building, and use that water for toilet flushing or irrigation. So I've been really involved in thinking in my career about ways to be more efficient about how we can make use of water resources, recover those water resources, and recover the pollutants in them to make energy or recover the nutrients. I think that I'll go ahead and leave it there and get into other components as we go through the rest of the panel.
That's great. That's great perspective, Sybil. As you're saying all of that, I'm just like, oh my God, there's so many things that you could do when you through that lens. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you. And Kim.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kim, and I'm a professor in animal science and also the director of CSU's new Sustainable Livestock Systems Collaborative. This initiative was launched by CSU about a year ago, and I've been on the team since October. So in comparison to the other initiatives that you're hearing from today, this one's relatively immature, but one that I think has an extremely bright future. The Sustainable Livestock Systems Collaborative sits really uniquely between the College of Agriculture Sciences and the College of CVMBS, so our veterinary school, and really those health professionals within CSU. And when you think about sustainability and animal agriculture, this will actually be the first initiative in the US that has both a health perspective and that more traditional agriculture sciences perspective. So it's really a unique opportunity to begin to address sustainability concerns through a truly interdisciplinary approach. So we've been really focused the last few months on establishing who we're going to be and what we're going to be focused on. So our vision is that animal agriculture is a sustainable component of our global food system by providing economic, social, and environmental benefits to Colorado, the nation, and the world. And similar to the other initiatives that we've heard from, we're really focused on solutions. And that's really different than the majority of the initiatives in the animal agriculture space. And some of that's because that work to really identify solutions is really hard and really costly. Most initiatives have looked backwards in time. So what can we learn from our progress? And we're really passionate here, and our mission is to identify and scale innovation that fosters the health of animals and ecosystems to promote profitable industries that support vibrant communities. So I think really following in line from what you heard from Sybil and Bryan, this will be just a wonderful addition to the CSU network. So we've also developed some purpose statements that will guide us for the next, when you think about what are we going to be in 20 years, we hope these purpose statements will continue to guide us. And the first is working on advancing the science of animal agriculture to ensure continued safe, secure, and nutritious food supply. And when we talk about that, we're really talking about pushing the boundaries of what is possible. So we don't want to be focused on what we know or looking back in time, like I mentioned. We really want to be identifying opportunities for the future. The second is to innovate and implement best practices. And I think this is just an extraordinary opportunity for animal agriculture more broadly to really connect the science into really on the ground, actionable achievement and progress. And we heard a little bit of that from Bryan and really how the Energy Institute has made much of their science kind of into a tangible reality, right? And we certainly have the same sort of aspirations here. And then finally, and probably one that most can resonate with when you think about animal agriculture, is that we really want to convene critical conversations. We want to bring together in a respectful way disparate perspectives and look for ways that we can really identify what solutions are meaningful as we progress forward. And this is a really tough space right now in the realm of animal agriculture. Many of our producers feel very attacked and very alienated, and so we're really going to be purposefully bringing together these different voices and hoping to really establish a space of respect where people can come and talk about what the future looks like. So we've also got some exciting kind of focus areas. We'll be focused on the resiliency of the supply chain and in that way, really elevating human health alongside animal health and ecosystem health and making sure that that supply chain is resilient and our farmers and ranchers are profitable as well. We're going to be focused on regenerative systems, so systems that kind of give back and are really focused on similar to what Sybil is talking about, right? That same, we used water as an example, but in the space of animal agriculture, it could be water, it could be carbon, it could be nitrogen, it could be all sorts of, it could be energy, it could be all sorts of different resources that need to be kind of regenerated through that system. So we're going to stay focused on that. And then more traditionally, really continue to focus on that efficiency pillar. So what we see often in sustainability, and certainly when it comes to animal agriculture, is that there tends to be a bit of a this way to raise animals is better than this way. And through this sort of efficiency pillar, we really want to meet everybody where they're at on their journey and to help them improve the sustainability of their system, whatever system it is that they work with, organic, conventional, traditional, doesn't matter. We want to be able to meet them where they're at and help them on their journey to be more sustainable. Really exciting. This initiative will come with a 12 to 13 person 10-year faculty cluster hire, which will be really neat. So in the space of animal ag and sustainability, the two universities that lead are UC Davis, and they have 2 people that work on this, and then University of Arkansas, and they also only have 2 people that work on this. So I would think if we put 13 towards it, we will very quickly be world leaders in this space, and I just think it's so desperately needed. Animal agriculture is a complicated and important food system, and there's not really anybody helping that sector become more sustainable in this scientific space. So it will be wonderful that CSU will step up and deliver that for them. That's all I've got, Jillian.
Yeah, that's great. It's so exciting. Yeah. And I think, really speaks to really setting CSU as a leader. And so great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll just take a moment to remind our audience to please enter your questions into the Q&A. but I'm going to kick off. We have one, but I'd like to start with this one first because I think it's a nice segue because all of you actually kind of touched on this in some way, but if you could expand a little bit more, because you're all working with other partners, whether that's within CSU or externally. And so we're curious about how much sustainability is driving those conversations, or is at least a part of those conversations. And maybe if you're all comfortable answering, we could use the same order of introductions, if that's cool. So Erika, do you want to speak to that question? You can repeat it if you'd like to.
Okay, I think I got it. So talking about our external partners, how sustainability comes into play. So I would say the first kind of external collaborator that comes to mind for me is the city of Fort Collins. We do a lot of work with the city, a lot of collaboration on projects, since we're right smack dab in the middle of the city of Fort Collins, and I would say definitely in our conversations with them as a city that also has really declared some lofty sustainability and greenhouse gas reduction goals. Sustainability is a big part of those conversations. And just one example is a project that I'm working on right now in collaboration with the city to hire a new bike share vendor. We lost our bike share vendor over COVID. And so we're actually working to hire another one in collaboration with the city. So there would be citywide coverage, but they'll have e-bikes and also e-scooters, and definitely during that selection process, as we were looking at the different companies, sustainability was a big part of what we were looking at, what the different companies had to offer, and just the reason that we want to offer this service in the city and at CSU in the first place. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the city of Fort Collins is certainly a big partner of the university. Yeah, that's great. Sybil? Bryan, sorry, I skipped Bryan.
No problem. You can go. So I actually want to start off by talking about the nature of the innovation process. And my favorite theorist on innovation is Andy Hargadon at UC Davis, who Cam just mentioned. But Andy talks about innovation as not the lone inventor, but as the network you bring together to accomplish important things. And so that really says that that our innovation process requires this basket of collaborators that we focus on. We've always had a strong partnership with industries, and that's really driven by the direct connection that gives us from the science we do to implementation at scale. And right now, those partners in that industry are going through a massive transformation. To meet the goals of decarbonizing the world by 2050, we've got to very rapidly change an entire global industry that spends over $5 trillion a year. So that's a massive transformation of that infrastructure, social systems, or energy networks, value chains, businesses. No one quite knows how we're going to get there, but it is an existential problem issue that we're working on. Some companies, some countries are more progressive and aggressive on this than others. But ultimately, there's a recognition that the entire industry has to change. And so but I also say it's really exciting to be a part of those discussions, not just writing papers to put into journals, but actually being engaged with developing solutions, figuring out how to get them to scale so that we can meet those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great point. I wrote several times, scale, scale, scale. It's one thing to come up with a great idea, but to actually get it out into the world really requires partners. So awesome. Sybil?
And with my research, I primarily interface with utilities, and a lot of experience working with utilities across the United States. And My experience is that cities are very interested in thinking about sustainability across everything they do, and how they manage water, especially urban planning, energy, all of these considerations. And there's a lot of thought about carbon footprint and even issues around equitable decisions, which is of course a large part of sustainability as well. And so definitely I hear a lot from municipalities and utilities that they want to find ways to have sustainability enter into their decision-making process and to really think about their urban design and in sustainable ways, and really work across the different silos as they've been before in cities. And even within water, we think about water, like potable water supply, wastewater, and stormwater. They're always been operated very much in a separate way. And cities are really trying to think about how they can integrate those and make more efficient decisions in an integrated way. So I see a lot of interest from cities, but they definitely also feel a lot of challenges, I think, in finding ways to really implement sustainability goals. City of Fort Collins, which Erika mentioned, they've been an amazing partner for us as well. And they're very forward thinking in terms of city planning and all management of all aspects of the municipal system. And they have a sustainability group, which really helps them to make sure that when they make decisions on any component of the city, that the sustainability considerations are there. But not all municipalities and cities have those kinds of departments. So that's certainly one thing I think that has helped City of Fort Collins to be one of the more progressive cities as it comes to sustainability, and is really looked at globally for this size, or at least nationally for this size of city as being a city that really has forward-thinking concepts present, very well known for the stormwater practices. And so there's been a lot of success from that, but having the human capital to really be able to address these problems is an issue for some cities. And I think that what we do a lot at One Water Solutions Institute is think about frameworks that can help cities through decision-making processes to get to more sustainable decisions, and provide different web-based tools that also provide decision support on water systems. For example, we have tools that assess different water conservation and reuse practices, and tools that provide costs and benefits of stormwater infrastructure practices. So a lot of the outputs that we have from our One Water Solutions Institute are geared toward guiding cities into some of these more sustainable decisions. And I definitely hear a lot of interest from them to do that. But it does become a problem of human capital and knowledge to be able to advance those things. So hopefully some of the things that we're doing at CSU are helping cities to do what they want in those areas.
Great, thanks, Sybil. Yeah, so much and it's one thing to have an idea and then try to scale it, but you need people to do it. You know, I think that's something certainly from my experience is talent, right? People also look to the university for the next wave of talent to do the work. And so that's something maybe we can talk about a little bit later too. I'm interested in your perspective, but go ahead, Kim, if you want to speak to this question.
Yeah, so our work is all done with collaborators, and it's really important that we're listening to them, because there are so many animal agriculture producers in the United States, and they actually all sort of individually manage their own ecosystem, and they own that ecosystem, right? So there's kind of a lot of layers when it comes to agriculture, and probably as scientists, we haven't done a good enough job actually understanding that social network and really actually tying together more traditional sustainability metrics, like, for example, ones related to water or climate or et cetera, with actually those really strong more social science questions or metrics, and they're explicitly linked. So when we develop solutions, we have to make sure those solutions can be adaptable and that they actually want to implement them, i.e. there's value in implementing them. And that's really hard to do because animal agriculture is across the entire United States. So just to kind of help you understand how important it is that we work with individual stakeholders, there are approximately 750,000 cow-calf producers in the United States, and the average herd size is 28 head. Okay, so that probably surprises most people that the majority of beef producers, they have approximately 20 head. We're in that. My husband and I own 4. So we are definitely in the small category. But the majority of those producers aren't necessarily sensitive to market signals because most of them have jobs, right? And like my husband and I, we grew up on ranches and whatnot, and we don't have them now because of where we are, but we get some sort of like wonderful satisfaction to go out and see our 4 cows every day, and we take explicitly good care of them, right? But we're not the normal, right? What you would think about as a producer. And so how do we develop solutions that my husband and I are willing to implement when they might be costly? There may not be an immediate return on that investment, right? It might just be because it's the right thing to do. And there's also, you sort of layer that when you're talking about social network stuff. Some of these topics are highly, as you all know, politically polarizing. And so we're oftentimes working with people on kind of opposite ends of that political spectrum. And so those relationships in animal agriculture, when we're talking about sustainability, are as important as the science. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. In my experience, in my immediate prior job, was doing strategic partnerships for the college. And some of our most successful experiences with industry partners in particular were when we started the conversation just listening. Because what is happening often, particularly in corporate America, is executive leadership saying, okay, we want to be more sustainable, and just throwing down, this is the goal we're going to meet by 2030. And then it's up to the rest of the company to figure out how to do it. And so often folks were looking to us, which says a lot for CSU, to say, how do we do it? We have to meet this metric in 10 years, and we have no idea how to cut our water by 10%. And so, I think that's a really wonderful position that CSU can hold in maintaining these external partnerships and listening, and then making sure that they'll be implemented and welcome.
Can I throw in something on this? And I think Kim described that, the role that they play in a really polarized industry. And we have historically done a lot of work with the oil and gas industry to reduce the environmental impacts of oil and gas production. But we've also done a lot of environmental work. And that has put us in this position of being able to host rational conversations. And because there is so much polarization. And I'll just say, as a case in point, when the issue of methane emissions from oil and gas production became a major concern, there was a major push from a large NGO called the Environmental Defense Fund to map out the methane emissions from the entire oil and gas chain. And they wanted to do that with the industry. And there's 4 different segments of the industry, the drilling, production, gathering, processing, transmission, storage, and distribution. And they were able to work with the first and last of those. But there was just a lot of distrust in the middle part of that value chain. But because, and so EDF kind of knew our relationships, reached out to us. And, because we were trusted for our scientific integrity, the industry was then persuaded to partner with Environmental Defense Fund. to complete that work. And the result from that is that the industry trusted the results that came from that. It pointed out to them that they have some work to do that they didn't really understand. So I think the value of us as conveners and trusted partners is really important in this grand scheme of innovation to get important things done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bryan, for that. And we had a question from the audience that I think we've now all sort of spoke to, but I'd like to, just in case there's any other comments you have. So this is from Alicia. All of these efforts are awesome and show just some of the great efforts happening across CSU in moving towards sustainability. What do you think would help us to further connect these types of efforts within CSU? And what do you think would really elevate our capacity to be leaders in affecting increased sustainability, resilience, and regeneration? So I think in some way we've all sort of answered that, but do you have any other comments on how we can continue to be leaders? So convening critical conversations, but any other comments about that?
I think it's to take advantage of the richness of disciplines we bring to this. You know, that from our side, a lot of our work is technical, but it's, I think of the conversations that we have with, with Governor Ritter and his policy group. The human element is tremendously important in looking at the adaptation of technologies. And I'm certainly, Kim, in your area, and Erika, from student adoption, that human element is equally as important. So the ability, I think, making advantage of the whole canvas of the university and all the resources to build those uncommon collaborations.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Bryan is saying there. There's so much integration that can happen between our different efforts, and bringing in some of the social science and economist perspective is really critical. I also lead what's called Interfuse, which is a graduate training program focused on food, energy, water systems. And the graduate students that participate in that program are required to, so we have faculty from social sciences, economics, engineering, and agricultural sciences as well. And we bring these groups of students from all of those different departments together to work on thinking about solutions for food, energy, water issues and the connections between food, energy, water systems. And this has been probably the most rewarding experience in my career, to watch these students learn from each other and the way that they interact, and watching engineering students work hand in hand with the social science students, and seeing the kind of things they come up with when they're working together. And I think having our students work in those collaborative environments across disciplines will really help move us forward in the future and provide them with skills that some of us don't have. And I think we're training kind of the next generation of problem solvers on these issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kim or Erika, any other comments there before we move on?
I think I would just add, from kind of the operations side, implementing sustainability at the university. One of the reasons that I love working at a university is because we have access to all these amazing, researchers and academics. And so I think there's that real great opportunity for collaboration too. And I think it already happens a lot, but we can put into practice a lot of these great innovations, right here at our campus too.
Okay, well, Kim, I'll move on if that's good. Okay, super. Well, this is a question for, I think, for everyone, if you're comfortable. And this is really more of it's just your personal opinion, really, but probably based on your area of expertise. What do you think is the most urgent sustainability challenge to address right now? You can obviously speak into your respective field, but if you want to speak more broadly, that's great too.
Yeah, so I can take this one first, and we just got another question in the chat, which I'm not sure anybody else can see, but this is the question in the chat actually aligns perfectly for me for answering this particular question, which is how do we answer consumer concerns related to food production practices, specifically right now. I mean, that's certainly the hot topic is climate change, and that particular topic, climate, certainly is one that, you know, kind of maintains a certain level of concern from the majority of consumers. But there are other things too, like, you know, that kind of all contribute to more fear in food. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. I don't want people to be fearful of food or have questions about, certainly we can have questions about the way our food is raised, but I want them to be able to get those questions answered and in an authentic way and to feel really good about that. And so that is one thing that I think is kind of really urgently pressing is that, you know, I think most of our consumers, they really want a simple answer. And unfortunately, in food systems, it's complicated, right? And it's complicated for a lot of different reasons. And it doesn't matter if it's, you know, an animal ag food system, for example, beef, or if it's something, you know, a bit more simple and streamlined, like, you know, a vegetable production, but there's still kind of wickedly challenging supply chains and food systems. And so when we think about urgent sustainability challenges, for me, it's actually as much about meeting that sustainability challenge with whatever the best solution, innovative solution is that allows that solution to be adopted in the supply chain and implemented and actually have tangible outcomes that make a difference. But as important is to effectively communicate that. And that is oftentimes harder than actually developing the innovative solution, right? Because this new, and it's not new, we've been dealing with social for a really long time, right? We've known for a really long time that if it's longer than 30 seconds, you're gonna lose somebody. And we have not figured it out in food production. Like, we have a really hard time authentically connecting with our consumers. And so for me, it's actually dual of that sort of response.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Couldn't agree more. Communicating is the majority of the battle, you know, communicating effectively. Let's see, does anyone else want to speak to, so the most urgent sustainability challenge?
Yeah, from the standpoint of energy, it is, you know, on the existential question is decarbonization. You know, how do we provide energy without, with essentially, you know, shutting down our greenhouse. We need to shut down our greenhouse gas emissions. On the other hand, we also need to provide energy to the half the world's population that either don't have reliable access to energy for cooking, for energy for lighting. So we've really, and this really falls into the area of energy justice, environmental justice. So how do we turn down the energy intensity of producing it, but how do we at the same time provide energy to those who don't have it and for whom it is necessary to improve their quality of life?
Excellent, great. Erika?
So I think, you know, looking at the transportation sector, you know, transportation nationally makes up about almost a third of our greenhouse gas emissions. And there's some really exciting technology. You know, electric vehicles are becoming more affordable for people to purchase. Probably in the near future, we'll have autonomous vehicles. And I think those are really great and will help, you know, help us cut down on our reliance on fossil fuels. But I think we would really be making a mistake if we just said, we're all just going to, you know, trade in our gas powered cars for electric cars and kind of go about our lives as we have been. I think it's really important for us to also start thinking, and this is kind of in that quality of life, broader sustainability perspective, what can we do to, reduce our reliance on these resources in general? And so with transportation, how can we work when we're planning our communities to make sure that people have safe, easy access to places to walk or to use their wheelchair or to hop on a bus or ride their bike. And, if we can make our communities accessible in these ways, then we won't have to use this technology as much either. So, and I think that could probably be said for many different sectors, how we change the way we live our lives to be less energy intensive or water or anything else.
Yeah, and even in that same thinking would contribute to equity. If there were ways to get around, it's a win-win for everyone. Yeah.
Right.
Sybil, do you want to speak to, in your opinion, the most urgent sustainability challenge in your field?
Sure. I think what Erika highlighted is really important. So we think a lot about source control and reducing the amount of waste, being more efficient with the water that we use. And water is interesting because it doesn't go away, right? It evaporates into the atmosphere and it rains somewhere else. But the problems around water are all about where it is and the quality of that water. So figuring out how to manage our water resources in a way that we make sure to use it efficiently and can bring and use local water sources that are available in areas, and figure out ways to improve water quality are, I think, really critical for human health and maintaining a healthy society moving forward in the future.
Great, thank you. I'm glad you're back. Okay, so I think we'll do a couple of individual questions right now. There's no unanswered questions from the audience, so please, again, enter them in the Q&A if you have something. But I have a question. We'll start with this one for Bryan. If a student or young professional wants to work in sustainability, what advice do you have for them?
I think I would urge anyone entering the field to think about how is your career progressive in an industry that's going to go through so much transformation. I started out researching engines and fuels. Many of the car manufacturers have already committed that they will produce their last combustion vehicle in 2035, so 14 years from now. So, so does that mean that we don't need to worry about combustion? I think it really means what takes the place of that. It may be a focus on new fuels, sustainable fuels, carbon capture, but they're going to see this. You can anticipate that you're going to go through waves of transformation on that path, and we have some very near-term goals. At his speech last week, President Biden committed to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030, to totally decarbonize the electric sector by 2035, and decarbonizing everything by 2050. So that is a sprint to get there, but the skills you need now won't necessarily be the skills you need then. At the same time, so you need to be flexible in the technical skills, but you also need to know what drives scale. In my graduate program, I certainly studied engineering, but I was also able to study economics and business. And I think I would encourage anyone to understand that business is the driver of innovation, because that's the only way solutions get implemented at scale that's required to have the impact that we need. So whether or not you wind up in the business world, academic world, technology, but understanding the drivers of change and innovation is critical.
I mean, that doesn't have to just be for Bryan. If anyone had any other comments about, advice for students or young professionals wanting to work in the field of sustainability. It's okay if you can.
I think one thing that I would say is every field needs sustainability. So identifying what you're passionate about and interested in is critical. And then much like what Bryan said, expanding your education in a way that you get out of your comfort zone maybe, and you take the business course and think of maybe, entrepreneurship or even, economics, and then social sciences like we've talked about, because expanding your thinking into these different disciplines is what really enables kind of the systems level thinking that's needed to address our problems and come up with the sustainable solutions and being able to think more broadly. So definitely taking yourself out of comfort zone with courses, but also sustainability is really broad. So you need to I think understand what is it that particularly interests you in terms of selection of the field, but then getting out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Great advice. I think any employer would appreciate a well-rounded individual, someone that is able to speak multiple languages. And I don't mean just being bilingual. I mean, business to their area of expertise, to even just being able to navigate time zones to hold a meeting, Kim, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would just add, if you have the opportunity to go meet and learn and experience the supply chain, do it. Right? Because I think Bryan has definitely talked about it. Sybil has talked about it. I feel it. Erika has talked about it, right? And if you have experience and knowledge in that industry, in that supply chain, it doesn't matter what part, right? But go take those internships because you will learn so much by listening to those different sectors, and whether it's a producer or an industry player, or it doesn't matter, right? You're going, just go out there, be a sponge, and then also we have to do this all the time. We have to set aside kind of our personal biases and be willing and able to put yourself in their shoes and to see these big audacious questions, whether it be a climate neutral goal, which these are everywhere at the moment. Be able to put yourself in their shoes and to see what they might be worried about or concerned about, because I think that's really what makes us so much stronger, is to be able to have empathy for where these people are at, or businesses are at on their journey.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, Erika, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on kind of a personal note to students who are thinking about sustainability. I went to CSU, graduated in 2007 in the Warner College of Natural Resources, and was really interested in, sustainability. That's what, really, that's what I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what, but I wanted to be related to sustainability. And I had no idea that I might end up in transportation. But because I had that, because I knew that's the impact that I wanted to have, I ended up in this field about 10 years ago, working with a nonprofit, and have now, and I found that it just really fit. And so I think the advice that I would have too is just to be open and see how you can apply your skills. And like Sybil said, every sector needs someone who cares about sustainability.
Yeah, thank you. And that's good segue. We just got a question in from the audience that I think, this is a nice lead in. So this person says that, they believe that all fields need sustainability, and do you think that all fields embrace that need? And if not, do you think that there is a way to get people to believe more in the necessity? So this is maybe walking the fine line and having some of those, differing views. So how do you approach that if you're faced with a challenge and maybe a non-believer in the importance in a certain field? And anyone that wants to take that.
you know, I can at least relay the journey from some of the industries that we've worked with. And, you know, I've worked on segments of the energy sector that were, you know, focused on sustainable biofuels. You know, Jillian, with, you know, when we were working together on algae biofuels, you know, that was at the bleeding edge, the leading edge of the spear. We've also spent a lot of time working with the oil and gas industry. And that's really interesting because they are, you know, somewhat late to the dance, but it's pretty clear that they recognize. I'll just talk to the natural gas industry. You know, they recognize that if they don't have a pathway to carbon neutrality, their product loses its value. So they are getting religion now around things like that Sybil has talked around renewable natural gas, you know, anaerobic digestion of organics to make methane that they can then clean up and put in pipelines. They're looking at pathways to methane from wind energy, you know, taking excess electrons that are available, turning that into hydrogen. Then there are pathways to turn that into renewable fuels. And that's being led most aggressively by some of the European companies who have, you know, who are maybe ahead of us in their thinking. And then some of the more progressive US industries. And then there are segments of the US industry that still haven't acknowledged that that the change will affect them. But you can just look at it over time and see that kind of gradual movement of more conservative, reluctant segments of the industry to recognition of the fact that this is real. It's being driven by their shareholders who are basically saying if they don't have a pathway to you know, that there'll be, you know, they want to see long-term pathway to profitability, and that means they have to have a pathway to carbon neutrality. So, you know, that doesn't mean, are they there yet? No, not all of them, but it's a journey, and it's a journey that's really happening fast.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan.
Yeah, just to echo that, I tell everybody right now, like, it used to be kind of years mattered in sustainability, and then about 6 months ago, months mattered, and right now weeks matter, days matter. I mean, it is the shifts that are happening are so fast. And to Bryan's point, from a shareholder's perspective, I don't know if any of you follow ESG assets, environmental, social, governance assets, but if there's a company out there who doesn't think this is going to impact them, I promise them, their minds are changing by the day with investments in ESG. So my take on it, similar to Bryan's, is it is coming. They actually are all watching it. I would say they probably don't, if they haven't started working on it yet, they might not know how, right? So there might be this big kind of question mark on, well, where do we even start and what is going on? And so their entry into sustainability generally starts, in my experience, through kind of their trade associations. So through their commodity association or whatever association might represent them. And then quickly, I mean, those associations have been working, at least in the agriculture space, have been doing this for 15 years now, right? They're pros at this stuff. And they have professionals on staff that'll help these companies, you know, get whatever they need to get kind of going in the right direction. And I think it is coming quite quickly, that there will be tremendous kind of movement for jobs and opportunities in this space.
So just to comment on ESG, and for those who are on the audience who aren't familiar with that, that's environment, social justice. And you know, you think that big oil company or big ag company is owned by, you know, this rich individual. The truth is, tremendous amount of the stocks are owned by things like pension funds, and you're increasingly seeing the California pension funds, the New York pension funds, a lot of the pension funds flexing their muscle and saying the people that we represent we also want to represent the values of those people with the dollars that we represent. And when, the California pension fund, which is, I don't know, California is like the fifth largest economy in the world or something, when they begin to vote with their dollars, it has impacts in boardrooms across the country.
That's a great point. Erika or Sybil, did you want to make any comment there? We've got another question, but if you wanted to comment on that. No? Okay. So this is another nice segue. This is like working out so well, the flow. This is a little bit more about policy. So the question is, are there roadblocks caused by policy that make it difficult to implement sustainable developments in agriculture, energy, industries? And how do you lobby both state and federal governments to change that policy and make sustainable growth possible? So if any, I know Bryan, you've got some experience there, but if anyone has some experience.
Yeah, I'll just say, maybe a great example is when Governor Ritter was the governor, there was, the Colorado became the first state to have a voter-initiated renewable fuel standard. And Excel was the Colorado Utility or Public Service Company of Colorado was adamantly opposed to that. They said, it's going to cost a lot of money, it's going to reduce reliability, but they were forced into it. And as they got into it, they realized that, boy, things were changing rapidly. Then when the next round came in, they didn't oppose it. They met the goals early, and now they have, and as they looked to how they could more aggressively switch to renewables, one of the challenges was that they had some legacy coal-fired power plants that still had life in them. And if they were to retire them early, how did they pay that off? And there were some regulatory barriers in terms of putting those shutdown costs into what they call the rate base. So in that case, there was a kind of a negotiation between the company and the regulatory bodies and public utilities commissions, a number of players, to identify a pathway that would allow them to accelerate those goals.
So I could say that in terms of water management, a lot of the technical solutions exist on how to manage systems better. And the barriers now remain around mostly policy and to some degree adoption of different practices. In Colorado, our water rights laws have kind of infringed on the ability to move forward with some of with using stormwater as a water source, for example. And but there's been changes in the last couple of years. There's been some legislation that's made use of stormwater possible and use of roof runoff. And so we're seeing changes happen in these areas that are enabling some of these technical solutions to be adopted now. And there's also been changes in legislation on how municipalities and agricultural producers can make trades between water more easily, and that's been really beneficial. So we are seeing a lot of changes, but I would still say that policy remains one of the largest barriers to really adopting new practices and approaches in water management. Also along with that, so we talked a little bit about the fit for purpose water and building scale water systems. That's a place where regulations have just been absent. And cities are having builders come to them and say, we want to make these green buildings and we want to do on-site water recycling. And so they're getting a lot of demand for it with their constituency, but don't have the regulatory framework to make that happen. So lack of regulatory guidance there has been a barrier, but there's been some new advances there with what's called National Blue Ribbon Commission, who has, which is a coalition of utilities and health departments that have worked with a group of national scientists that I've been involved with, and kind of taken the research work and put that into pragmatic terms that serves as regulatory guidance for developing regulations on decentralized water systems. So definitely a barrier, but lots of promise, I think, in terms of solutions as well.
That's great perspective. Erika or Kim, any comments on policy challenges or maybe something good?
I think there's some good developing on certainly on the agriculture side. I think this administration is really going to spend a lot of time focusing on solutions that agriculture provides. Bryan referenced some of this with our soil organic center. Bryan, I'm getting the name wrong, but generally sequestering carbon in row crop agriculture. There's also some work that's been done looking at additional carbon sequestration in rangelands too. And I think that this administration is going to be focused on really elevating agriculture as a solution to some of our climate challenges. There's some, I think it's not going to solve all of the problem. It's going to be a this and, right? Like most things are. But I think in agriculture, there's certainly some excitement and hope around potentially a market for ecosystem services, which has been discussed for a really long time and has never really come to pass. And I think that we might see some movement in that space. I'm not sure a complete market will develop. There's lots of challenges that I don't fully understand from the economic lens, but I do think we'll see some positive policy on the good side of the equation.
Thanks. Can we move on? We have we're at about 13 minutes, so I have a few more questions right now. Let me ask Sybil, I have a question for you, and then it looks like another one just came in. What accomplishments or contribution to sustainability are you most proud of?
Okay, well, that's a good transition because I just mentioned this a little bit about the National Blue Ribbon Commission and some of the panels that I was on, scientific panels that I was on that helped inform development of regulations. For me, that's been the most rewarding process that I've been involved in because now we have, I think, either 7 or 8 states that have adopted the regulatory guidance that was put forward by the scientific panel that I chaired, and have actually made use of that guidance. And now there's more and more of these on-site water recycling systems coming up in all of those different states. And so that's just been really rewarding for me to kind of see science-based regulations happen and to be part of that process happening.
That's really great. Congratulations. Okay, Erika, we're going to turn our focus a little bit internally. I have a question for you. So CSU, I'm sure everyone here is aware, has been recognized nationally and internationally as a leading institution in both research and commitment to sustainability across campus. And so we're curious for you, being, you're internally facing a lot, serving our students and staff. So how does this influence your work and experience, both as an employee at CSU?
Great, yeah. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it really is, this is such a rewarding place to work for someone who cares about sustainability, because, even on our kind of our operations side here at CSU, we have a lot of people who are really committed to sustainability in many facets of the work that we do. And it's wonderful that we're having, especially lately with the president's strategic transformation, naming sustainability as one of those top things that define CSU. But also I think one of the strengths that we have here within our operations is that we treat sustainability as kind of this decentralized thing. And so we don't have, one person who is in charge of sustainability, but rather we have a collection of a lot of different people who all have different expertise who are focusing on sustainability. So whether that's just a few examples, housing and dining services, running their own composting operations, or incorporating sustainable foods into their dining halls, or facilities installing all of these new solar projects, or the geothermal project, or my department working on different sustainable transportation options. We're all able to kind of focus on what we do best and then come together and see how we can collaborate as well. And then I would just say, as just personally as a CSU employee, I think in a lot of ways for an employer to help promote sustainability and to make sustainability important benefits me as an employee too. And even just looking at, the transportation, the area where I work as an employee, I get to ride transport for free. We have things like amenities like commuter showers if I want to bike to work, or run at lunch or something like that. So I think all of these things that employers can do to help promote sustainability also make it hopefully a better place to work for employees as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know, I feel like you have like a little badge of honor, That's great. Thank you. Kim, I have a question for you. We have just about 9 more minutes. So if you could see one significant positive change in sustainability in the next 10 years, what would it be?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I would love to have climate neutral systems and to be able to prove that. So really kind of, and not just in climate, I think water is as important as is biodiversity, but just, really kind of these regenerative systems that give back and not just support the environment, but support the communities that depend on them, right? So whether that's more of an urban community or a rural community. And then I think more selfishly about animal agriculture, I would just love for our producers to feel like they're a part of the discussion and that they're welcome at the sustainability table. I think Bryan, what he's been able to accomplish with oil and gas is not so dissimilar than how a lot of beef producers feel right now. And, just like our oil and gas companies, I really like turning on the lights, and I also really like eating a hamburger. And I feel like we need to figure out solutions that, are inclusive and don't alienate sectors of our supply chain, because they're so important, right? They're so important to our overall energy systems, to our food systems, to our water systems, to our transportation systems even, right? We all are connected and interlinked. And I think oftentimes as scientists, we study one thing because that's what we have to do to pull error out and actually get the answer to that one thing. But sometimes that limits our ability to answer more systems-based questions. And I do really think there's such a wonderful effort here at CSU focused on the system and a willingness to listen to a variety of different perspectives. And I hope in 10 years, we've also trained a ton of students who have that ability to go out and listen and to find, good solutions that really meet the greatest challenge of our time. And we've got a bunch of them right now. So that's what I hope for in 10 years.
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. I agree. And I wanted to just make a comment about that cross collaboration. I think, as we were speaking earlier about CSU being a leader in this space and innovating in this space, and a lot of that starts within, across colleges within CSU and then moves outward. And I think that for CSU to continue to foster and and promote all of this cross-disciplinary efforts is strategic and important and really contributes to the success. Okay, I think does anyone have any I have one last question I'd love to ask you, but I want to make sure I give a little, if you have any other closing thoughts or something that we didn't get a chance to cover today that you just like really wanted to share with the audience, give you a moment if you want. Okay, so the last fun question. So because I know many of you would normally be traveling quite a bit, but this past year you've been grounded. So I'm just curious if you could travel to anywhere and implement your work and or just be promoting sustainability, where would it be? And we can just go around our final order. So I guess we start with Erika.
Oh my gosh, I might have to think for a minute. Come back to me.
Okay. Bryan, do you have an answer? Anyone jump in? Oh, that's okay. Any place you'd want to?
Yeah, I'll answer. I would just want to go talk to rural beef producers to make them less worried about the word sustainability and how it might affect them, and to help them understand how much we need them to answer these big wicked problems, and to help them feel more included. So ideally somewhere without cell service, because I'm tired of the constant email and Zoom, but it would absolutely be with just really rural livestock producers, so that they could ask me tough questions and I could hopefully make them feel better about the space more broadly.
I love that. Great.
So I find this, it's like, which are your children, who do you choose? And so I just look forward to actually being able to be in the room with people. We was on a panel this morning with colleagues in Finland who are really doing some great work on decarbonizing buildings. But an area where we've been particularly active before the shutdown was in sub-Saharan Africa, and really looking at both the basic needs that they have, and that's where we've done a lot of our work with on cook stoves. But there's a huge need for additional energy to improve the lives there, and I've just really enjoyed the time I've spent there, and look forward to the opportunity to be back.
Great. Sybil, where would you go?
So I have a hard time to think about a specific place, but one kind of example of a place that has really implemented water sensitive urban design, and a lot of the concepts I've been talking about today, is Singapore. And I think that I would love to go there and see all of those systems, but better would be to kind of get to an area that has that kind of rapid development that's moving from second world to first world, to really engage in that process and help them to develop their cities in an urban sensitive way, a water sensitive way, sorry.
That's great. Did you come up with one, Erika?
Okay, so I've thought about it a little, and I think honestly, since my work is so internally focused at CSU, I think what I'm really looking forward to is to be able to be on my bike with a group of CSU employees or students, and taking them around campus and showing them how to ride safely. So I think, thankfully, I think that's pretty attainable, and I think we're going to be able to do that this summer. Yeah, I think that would be a great thing to be able to start doing again.
I love it. That's perfect. Well, we're about at the end of our time. So I just want to, again, extend our gratitude to all of you for taking time with us today. Thanks to the audience for sticking with us. And any other last comments? Just a big thank you. This was wonderful. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Great conversation. Thank you for hosting, Jillian.
Thanks for having me, Jillian.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hey, everybody, take care.